What is going on, kids? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X-Layer to provide you my very deep and insightful thoughts on the latest episode of The Gifted. We had The Gifted Season 2, I believe this was episode 12, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, and forgive me if I am. We had a bit of a break since the last episode, where Marco's eclipse, we didn't know what happened in that car. It turns out that he was shot. He survived, but the other dude is dead. And we see the aftermath of that, but that's really not what's going on this episode. We had a major fucking event happen this episode. A heartbreaking event. One that I thought would never happen. But given the expense of representing Blink properly, it kind of makes sense from a production standpoint, but I don't want to, demystify the sort of romantic element of what happened. It's horrible what happened. I never thought I would see Blink fall, and we saw Blink fall today. Or we think we saw her fall. We saw her get shot a couple of times, and then we saw her fall back through the portal, but we didn't see her die. So maybe she's still alive. I'll keep my fucking fingers crossed. But it's not looking too good, and it was a heartbreaking moment. It was a tough one to process, and it's one of the reasons why I think the show has a fighting chance, you know? Like, they're willing to make big sacrifices, they're willing to make big moves, and that's bold, and that's something that, you know, the little engine that could ultimately become the locomotive that we would want it to be. And so, you know, maybe big moves like this will ultimately turn the show around and make it as popular as we would all want it to be, so that it can flourish and continue to grow. But anyway, Blink is dead, presumably, based on what we saw. This was a nutty episode. I didn't see the Purifiers going against the Morlocks coming. I didn't see that whole thing coming. And there were moments in the episode where it felt epic, and there were other moments where it was like, alright, the show can't afford to do what they're trying to do here, but I'll give them a pass because it's a fucking X-Men show, and there's mutants, and there's Purifiers, and there's Morlocks, and there's war, and there's fighting, so, you know, I'll let it slide partly. But, you know, I mean, obviously there were some issues with what we saw, but all that aside, it was nuts. It was a nutty setup. It started at the beginning when Reva in the flashback is recruiting the Fox News guy, and we still haven't really gotten a clear-cut description of exactly what is going on between them. Clearly, like, he is the guy that started the Purifiers, and he's heading the Purifier. What, is he the guy that started the Purifiers, or was it that doctor? Or was that doctor the sister of him? Or I don't know. I forget exactly what the deal was there, but he obviously is the leader of the Purifiers, and he has been promulgated to his status as a big journalist, as a big-time pundit, right-wing pundit, by Reva. I mean, clearly she's trying to establish conditions that would justify why a mutant uprising is necessary, and that it makes sense in that way. But I don't know, it just, like, for her to give him the information about the Morlock tunnels and be okay with there being a mutant massacre in the Morlock tunnels, that is a tough pill to swallow. But I can see, like, from her perspective, like, that is something that in her mind would be justified. Like, the good of the many outweighs the good of the few. If you know, if you have these Morlocks die and that incites a mutant uprising, then it might be worth it. But it's still, like, it feels a little bit like crossing of the line. But I guess that's ultimately what makes her a villain, right? Like, she's not like an altruistic villain where she's like She's looking out for her people, period. She has certain ends that she wants to accomplish, and she's willing to make horrible sacrifices for them, and that ultimately does tip the scale in of the balance towards, you know, evil, essentially, which I'm not okay with. But I do respect it as a villain for the show. I don't like that the villain has to be a mutant, though. I wish it would be a human. But I mean, I get it. I understand why, you know, you're gonna have big mutant villains. That's part of the X-Men legacy, and it makes sense. It's a tough pill to swallow, and it was a tough pill to swallow as it was happening, as it was sort of building up with the sort of the dissemination of the information that the Morlocks are down in the tunnels, and Jace organizing the Purifiers to go after them. Like, as the scenes were kind of leading to that, I still couldn't believe it was actually going to happen. And there was a point when it was actually happening where I thought that the mutants would survive, you know, and they would ultimately prevail, but that is not what happened. We had a lot of the Morlocks died, and that was tragic. And then, of course, we had a lot escape, but Blink was caught in the crossfire, and we may have lost Blink, which is pretty severe. Now, there was some other interesting stuff happening with the Struckers. Now, I've been mentioning in my reviews that I like the idea that the mother, which I'm trying to remember her name. I always forget the names. Like, as soon as we get a break from the show, I forget the names because they're not canon, you know. They're not part of the X-Men lore, so it's a little difficult to keep track of them. But Lauren's a kid. Anyway, the mother, I like the idea that the show was kind of crafting her as this like hardcore, like Sarah Connor type of badass who, you know, even though she's human, she's willing to like be, you know, aggressive and just really tough on fighting for mutants. And we saw that today. We saw some really great moments where she told her husband about the fact that she had egged on her daughter to become more aggressive in defending herself. And then ultimately we saw it in the Jeep when she like broke through the police barricade, which I thought was pretty fucking cool for her to do that. It was a really interesting moment. It was a moment where I was unsure if she was the one that was going to die. It seemed as though she was going to die. Like they had that sort of like, I think they like zoomed in on her and that had that crack in the windshield. It looked like that final moment where she like is going to like save the mutants, but then that's going to maybe wind up getting her killed, and then that maybe tipping the scale for Lauren to completely join the dark side, right? The bad side of the mutants, the Hellfire Club. But that's not what happened. Like they actually did seemingly get away. We didn't quite see how that played out, but hopefully they do get away. And I really respected that. With the father, we got that moment of him just like deciding that he's not going to take the pill anymore. What the fuck does that mean? Like, is he going to figure out how to use his powers, or is he going to be the threat at the end? You know, because clearly like he has all these powers like being stopped up, and so there's like a pressure building that starts to erupt as soon as the suppressors are taken out of his system. And so what's going to happen there? I don't know. It's exciting. I'm excited to find out. I like what happened with Lauren, that she eventually decided she didn't want to take that suppressing pill either. Good. I want her to play. I want her story to play out. You know, I don't want it to be like, oh, like we're gonna tease you with like, you know, what she could be, and then we're always gonna pull it back. It's like, no, let's go. Let's be all in on this. We've seen now, and this is a production thing. We've seen that Legion, and we're having a third season, luckily, and apparently Xavier's in it, and so is Gabrielle Haller. So Legion's parents are gonna be in this. We've heard that that's going to be the final season. Now, I've heard that it was planned to be that way, and I've also surmised that it wasn't, right? Because Marvel is taking back, Marvel/Disney is taking everything back because they're starting their streaming service. And so it would make sense for them to want to just like wipe the slate clean of all the television content that is being produced of their characters by other companies, and then put that fucking Marvel Disney stamp on the way they represent their characters in every medium. Television, film, comic books, whatever. And I'm all for it. I'm all for it. We're seeing some good stuff happening in the comics right now. I don't know if you guys are into the comics, but I'm keeping up with the comics. And like, you know, we had an injustice happen about, maybe it was like a year and a half ago, where Cyclops was fucking killed by the Inhumans because of the whole bullshit of like, you know, Disney not having the X-Men right, so they were trying to make the Inhumans the X-Men, and then they had the Inhumans versus X-Men, and then they killed fucking Cyclops. Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men, one of the original 5 that had been like the core of the team, that had been the heart of the team, that had been the steel backbone of the team. They killed him so nonchalantly. And of course we had Wolverine killed as well, and even though there were like 3 other Wolverines running around, like the actual Wolverine was dead. But in Uncanny X-Men number 11 that came out last week, spoilers, take a moment if you don't want to know, fast forward a bit, I'll do a little hand wave thing when I'm done. Wolverine and Cyclops are back. Now, we've had some really cool stuff happening where X-Man, the Age of Apocalypse version of Cable, who is in the regular continuity, Earth 616, he started a religious crusade and wanted to like change the world, and he wound up making an alternate reality similar to the Age of Apocalypse, but in this one it's a utopia where mutants are the dominant species. And so all the X-Men have essentially been transported to this reality, and the people in the normal reality don't know that. So they think the X-Men are dead. And so in Uncanny X-Men number 11, we had Cyclops reemerge after he had already reemerged at the end of Extermination. I know, I'm like totally getting off track here. I'm just trying to catch people up, if you're interested. At the end of Extermination, which sent the original 5 X-Men back to their time, which is something that had been long overdue, we found out that original Cyclops, the old man Cyclops, normal old age Cyclops, is alive, and then he reemerges. His story is told in Uncanny X-Men Annual number 1, which came out about 2 weeks ago, which told us how he came back, which was actually his son, Cable, a young version of him, who brought him back with the Phoenix Force. It's crazy. I was really satisfied with the story. I don't know if you guys have checked it out. Anyway, in the reality that we're in now, after it's been so many years, Cyclops and Wolverine are fucking together, and they're going to bring the X-Men back. It's really exciting. It's really exciting for me because I've been following the comics for a while now, and it's been just all over the fucking place. All sorts of fucked up shit has been happening to our beloved characters, and it seems as though they're finally bringing them back to where they need to be, and kind of getting us back to that place where it makes sense. And so I feel like Disney is behind that. They're like, we got to get the X-Men back to the place where they should be, so that we can then have the comics be consistent with what we're going to be showing in the movies and the television shows. And so that's why I feel like the TV shows are going to start pulling back, and so we're not going to see much more of these shows. So I'm thinking that this show does not have much more life in it. Now, is it going to end in a way that is natural for the show, or is it going to get canceled in like a cliffhanger? Hopefully, that's not the case, and we're going to get a natural conclusion to the story. I think we deserve it. You know, us fans that have been with the show since the beginning and have been dedicated to it. Some of us even, I don't know, making videos about each episode. You know, I think we deserve the show to tie up nicely so that we can then kind of put it aside and say, you know what, this is a nice little X-Men mutant story that we can always kind of go back to and have as like a thing that exists. Of course, we don't know how good the Disney stuff is going to be, so maybe, you know, we're not even going to want to come back to this. But it's enjoyable. I haven't rewatched any of it, but I have a feeling that if they tie it up nicely with 3 seasons, like they're doing with Legion, then it'll be a self-contained story that I will want to go back to, and therefore I will revisit it. I'm liking what's happening this season. It took a while for the build-up to happen, but now it's really intriguing. Like, the Mutant Massacre thing I mentioned. So the Mutant Massacre thing is an important storyline that happened in the comics. And that's when Angel, one of the original 5 X-Men who has the wings, the angel wings, got his wings cut off. And that's when Apocalypse got a hold of him and turned him into the Angel of Death, and then gave him the metal wings, which evolved him into this fucking dope-ass, weird, like, the techno-organic type of creature that's fucking fucked up in the head. And it's just like, there's so many great stories came from that, but it all started in the Mutant Massacre. The Mutant Massacre, I believe, was orchestrated by Mr. Sinister, because Mr. Sinister was, I think it was a survival of the fittest sort of thing, where it's like he didn't feel like they were up to par in terms of strength and ability to thrive like other mutants, and so he felt like they needed to be wiped out. We kind of got that in this episode. We kind of got the Mutant Massacre, which was a nice kind of... It was a nice reference to the comics, but clearly it wasn't exactly the same thing, but it was a nice reference to it. So I enjoyed that. The Urg stuff I really enjoyed as well. Urg had his nice kind of moment with Clarice. It was kind of funny. Like, she walks in, he's like shirtless, looking very nice, by the way. By the way, I'm gay, if you didn't know. And he's like, oh, wait, I stay back, as though like he was like completely naked, but he was just like not wearing a shirt. He like had half a shirt on. It was kind of a weird moment, but that was a weird kind of moment of like, are we gonna start seeing sparks fly between Urg and Clarice, which is another reason why that final scene, that final moment, took me by surprise and really kind of hit me hard, because like it felt like the show was kind of building up to like this love triangle between Thunderbird, Urg, and Blink, but apparently not. Or maybe, I don't know. We don't know if she's dead yet. Let's not jump to conclusions. She's probably dead though, unfortunately. We had a couple of other interesting things happen. One was like this overhead shot of the actual mutant city underground. It was very brief, right? But it was like, okay, now you're spending a little money, show. You're spending a little money on showing us the world of the Morlocks, and I respected that. And the whole thing of Urg like being shot and then him redirecting his energy was almost cool, because there were a couple of moments where it was just like 5 shots and it was like like a little electric shock back. It's like it should have been like a super powerful fucking force, that like obliterated like a few purifiers, but it was like beep, and like it threw one guy back. One guy did die, so hey, that was decent. And then there was that guy, that kind of muddy monster that he reminds me of like actual Morlocks. Like, he was the only one that really reminded me of like the Morlocks from the comics, and also the Morlocks from the 90s cartoon with Callisto. There were some interesting ones in that cartoon, and I'm remembering now in the cartoon there was a guy who had only one eye, and he would take out the eye patch and he would shoot with it. Was that Urg? But he was white. I mean, it doesn't matter that they changed the race. But was that Urg? Maybe. Maybe not. Anyway, the episode has some interesting stuff in it. I liked that it was very clear that we were heading towards some pretty dramatic stuff, and then we actually did see that dramatic stuff. I liked that a lot. And then, of course, we had the stuff in the Hellfire Club as well, which was interesting. The sort of aftermath of Lorna helping Eclipse kill that one dude, and then that leading to Sage dying, which I was okay with because I don't like Sage. Oh, by the way, we got Sage and Blink dead in the same episode, if Blink is dead, which it appears she is. That's 2 characters dead in one episode. I'm glad Sage was dead, though, because, like, it is gone, though, because, like, it just felt cheap. Like, it just felt wrong. Like, here's a character that you could really do a lot with, but she's just like, all right, I'm going to open the door. All right, I'm going to start the training session. I've hacked the computers. It's like, that's a really terrible use of a decent character that you could do a lot with. So, and the actress was okay. She actually gave a little bit of like drama in that final scene that she had, but still, like, it was a little shaky. So I'm actually glad that she's gone, because she just felt like a loose end that needed to be tied, and now it has been. So I'm glad. But beyond that, I like the stuff that was going on. The Hellfire Club, we got some good, like, Reva with the cuckoos moments, which I always appreciate. I don't like that Reva just disappears for multiple episodes and then she pops back in for, like, a couple of scenes. I don't like that at all. And that also kind of negates the usefulness of the cuckoos, which I don't like at all either. So having her there makes the cuckoos more relevant, and the cuckoos should have a more relevant part in all this, because they're fucking awesome characters, and the show should really play them up. And so, yeah, I like that stuff. Now, where's all this heading? Why did Reva want the Morlocks dead? Like I mentioned, it's probably to justify a mutant uprising, but was there something else to it? Is there something more to this pact that she has with this dude, Benedict Arnold, I think his name is, or whatever his name is? Maybe. I don't know. I'm intrigued. I want to know what's going to happen next. I want to know what's going to happen in these last few episodes. I think we have like 4 episodes left, or 3 episodes left. One of the two. Either way, there's some exciting stuff coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. So, hey, bring it on. I haven't heard anything about a renewal, so we don't even know if we're getting a 3rd season. Hopefully we are getting that 3rd season, though. And if so, if it's going to be the last season, hopefully they'll tie it up nicely, like I know they're going to do with fucking Legion. Like, I cannot fucking wait for Legion Season 3. I really love Legion. I think it's such an interesting show. It's a work of art, just in terms of, like, visual storytelling. And beyond that, like, it's intriguing, right? And now that we're going to actually bring Xavier into it, that's going to be fucking nuts. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen in that show. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the rest of this show. Hopefully things do continue on in a good quality way, the way that you would expect the show to escalate from this point to the end of the season. So I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you are as well. And if you like what you saw, keep up with my channel. If you want to keep up with my newest reviews that are going to be coming up of the last few episodes of the show, and of course Legion, then subscribe. Click on that little button under the screen, and keep up with my videos. Also, if you liked the video, click like. If you didn't like it, click you didn't like. If you want other people to watch this, share it on social media. Tell other people, hey, there's this crazy guy who's into the X-Men quite a bit, and he likes to talk about it on his channel. Bring him on over. And as always, I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you better put an X in the box, ladies and gentlemen, because ain't nobody checking me. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.